Jody Hardesty with Empowered Heart Connections. I'm going to talk about the many mindset shifts that people go through during the stages of a relationship, particularly pertaining to whenever we have kids as a couple. I'd love it if you guys would leave your comments on what has worked for you and the challenges that you might have struggled with in your parenting and relationship challenges in the comments. That would be awesome. Also, you're welcome to check out the other video with trying to navigate those tough questions that can cause conflict, like finances and children. That has more information about some of this topic. So men and women both go through different mind shifts whenever they are going to go from, first of all, casual dating, right? You start out dating and it's more about kind of having fun and getting to know each other, but you're also very focused on yourself for both men and women. We're both focused on maybe what's more fulfilling for our individual benefit. We're focused on our own finances, maybe buying things for ourselves or investing in whatever is going to benefit us personally rather than what's going to benefit us together as a couple, right? Which is very natural and normal. All of us are kind of designed to figure out what we need on our own before we're able to figure out what we need as a couple. So when you're in that dating stage and both men and women are working on their own self-care, their own needs, maybe they're spending money on their own hobbies, and they're not as invested, obviously, as in the relationship yet because it hasn't gotten to the level of commitment. So once you get to that level of commitment stage of the relationship, the mind shift starts to happen, right? We're more talking about what's best for us, what's best for the team, and maybe even budgeting is an issue, like we talked about in the other video with finances, is the budgeting conversation has to be more of a group conversation rather than just an individual effort, especially if you guys are pooling your money together. And then whenever we are going to add another element to the relationship, like a child, it can be really helpful to make sure you have all of that foundational piece worked out and that you've kind of worked on a method of navigating your wants and needs and desires as a couple before a child comes into the picture. Because once a child comes in, the mindset changes again. And the mindset changes to obviously having the focus and priority be on the child. But sometimes what happens in that dynamic is we can lose a sense of connection as a couple. So it's really important that we're able to navigate together how to support each other in this new dynamic. That there's a whole new family dynamic that's happening. And although the infant takes priority in many ways, it's essential that we find ways to support each other in taking time for self-care, taking time for breaks. And it's also can be helpful to have a conversation about the mindset shift, especially if you guys feel like you're on different pages. If one of you feels like you're doing more of the parenting than the other and you need some more support and some more help from that, it's essential to make sure that you are reaching out for support and you're explaining to your partner what you need. As I've mentioned in many other videos, most people aren't great at being psychic, so we all have to ask clearly for what we need. And sometimes that's hard to figure out whenever you're first navigating those parenting days, whenever you're exhausted and maybe not getting so much sleep. But I think it's also really essential in those moments whenever you are having some peaceful moments, especially if you're together, to really share the joy in the parenting experience as well and talk about the cute moments and the things that make you laugh and the things that really help you to stay positive and be connected. But also, again, to make sure that you are kind of evenly distributing the responsibilities if you can. And often situations, there's one person who's working and one person who stays at home. And that can be a difficult delineation too. Part of the challenge as being a stay-at-home parent is that you don't get any time off. There's no like, I get to come home from work kind of experience. It's a full-time 24/7 job. So it's really important to make sure that that person is getting honored and appreciated and acknowledged for the work that they're doing at home, because obviously it can be a really, really important role. And even if one of you maybe is working less than the other, that to recognize the responsibilities and the gifts that you're giving to the relationship that both people who are providing to the relationship, either financially or emotionally, are giving to the relationship. So really making sure that you're taking time to connect with each other around supporting and appreciating those things that you're giving, and to make sure you're acknowledging those positive things, particularly around those parenting issues in the beginning, like, oh, I love the way you tenderly patted the baby so lovingly whenever she was really fussy, even though she was fussy for a really long time, that you really kept your patience and were just holding her lovingly. That was so touching to me to watch that. The other piece is if someone is working, obviously work has its own complications and difficulties and stressors, especially depending on the job. So it can be really helpful to make sure that you're allowing your partner who comes home from work to have a little disconnect time before you hand them the baby. So to make sure that they have some time, a little bit of downtime when they come home to kind of get into home mode, because work takes a different mindset. So to allow each other some time and space to have your decompression time, to be able to kind of debrief a little bit before you jump right in to another role, another position that you're doing as a family member. But again, to really make sure that you are feeling cared for and connected, and allowing each other, taking turns parenting so that you can have that time to have the downtime and have the self-care time, and make sure that you're continuing to do things that you love and enjoy outside of parenting. Make sure you're continuing to go on date nights if you can. And if you can't, even if you maybe don't have childcare set up quite yet, it can be helpful just to have a trusted neighbor or friend come over for a little bit and give you guys some time to go for a walk, get some fresh air together, to make sure that you're really able to find time to remember the joy of your connection in your relationship. The other piece is, if it's possible, you want to make sure that you can find all of those foundational pieces before you have the child, before you bring the children into the relationship, to make sure you have the ability to navigate conflict together peacefully. Because when there is another element of a child there, it can be stressful, it can be overwhelming, and especially when you're sleep deprived at first, when the baby's not sleeping at night, it can be really challenging to navigate conflict if you haven't already established some sort of dynamic where you can communicate lovingly and openly and resolve conflict and repair if there has been maybe some hurt feelings over conflict or stressors. So making sure you have that foundation first is obviously ideal. If you haven't had that opportunity, it can be challenging to do this while you have a new baby in the house, but it's not impossible. And to remember to give each other grace. That remember that, especially when we're feeling stressed out and we're feeling tired and overwhelmed, that we may not be handling things as well as we normally would. So if you can be the bigger person, no matter who you are, I tell people this all the time, that if you can soften in that moment when your partner is maybe going a little bit off the rails with their state of mind, maybe they're snapping a little more than they normally do, but to give them a little bit of grace in that moment and empathize with them, right? This is the key to every conflict, is empathizing first. Empathize, like, it sounds like you're really frustrated. Is there anything I can do to help? I see that you're struggling, or it seems like you're struggling. Is there anything I can do to help? Do you want me to, is there some other things that I can do to help out with the baby? Or do you need me to do some more work around the house? What is it that's feeling stressful? And you can explore that, but ultimately you want first is that empathy piece is, gosh, this is really hard. It's stressful. It's stressful sometimes whenever we have a new baby and we're trying to navigate things and figure everything out. So making sure that you're offering up that empathy. Any conflict can be improved, or the conflict can be reduced by adding that element of connection. And you may be wrong whenever you're throwing it out there. It may be like, gosh, you seem really frustrated. They're like, no, I'm not frustrated. I'm disappointed. That's okay. You're still exploring those kind of feelings words to help really bring the feelings to light so that you can move through the emotion and get to the resolution and the problem solving piece. So they say, oh, no, I'm not frustrated. I'm disappointed. And you say, okay, can you tell me more about that? What's happening? What are you feeling disappointed about? Like, I'm here for you. I want to listen to you, right? Rather than doing the fighting back, which is really hard, especially if you're both stressed out and tired. But remembering the joy in those moments and remembering that, okay, this is just a moment in time. that this conflict will pass and this stressful moment will pass. And again, after you work through those emotions and those difficult moments, to go back to, okay, here's what I really enjoyed this week about our family, or here's what I thought was so adorable that our baby did, or here's something that I am looking forward to in the future with our kid, or something that's positive, something that you can compliment each other on, or acknowledge each other on, or acknowledge each other about, and not acknowledge and appreciate. And remember that, we all have stressors, we all have tough roles to some degree, but that's not all there is. It's not all tough, it's not all stress. That it's important to make sure we remind each other and appreciate each other for all that we do, and try to give each other grace and look past those difficult moments, particularly when it is stressful, when we're having kids and we're learning how to navigate that. So I hope this has been helpful. Please check out my other videos if you find this helpful. And if you do, I'd love it if you'd share them with your friends. Thank you so much for watching.